Okay, the math professor is on the air once more. All right, well, I hope everyone had an exciting weekend. Maybe not too exciting, considering we went back to the full weekend lockdown. But that's how life is here in the big city. All right, so today I'm a bit ahead of schedule. We have well, it looks like somebody had a super exciting weekend.
What's up?
I said it looks like somebody had a super exciting weekend.
Stress fracture. Stress fracture? My foot?
Okay, well,
Yeah.
I hate when that happens. All right, so open up PowerPoint on your computer. And we are going to select blank presentation. All right, and of course, the first thing we do is we save as wow. It's not even offering me the choice of computer skills. All right, there we go. Computer skills. So, Whiting, homework number, what is this, 9 or 10?
9.
9, fantastic. And today's date is 9/29/28 actually, 2020. Okay, now, did anyone else want to say it's a different homework number than 9? All right, 9 it is. Just can't help but think that's wrong though. And in fact, it's driving me crazy to the point where I have to go check in the grade book. Ooh. Ooh. Okay, it is number 10. All right. All right, so I'm saving Whiting homework number 10, 9/28/2020. There we go. And I should already be on Zoom. Sorry to be so scattered. I slept very poorly last night.
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed by pound.
Right.
You have not entered any number. Please re-enter your meeting ID followed by pound.
Which is totally wrong.
You entered 1640169912009. This meeting ID does not exist. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed by pound. Enter your participant ID followed by pound. Otherwise, just press you are in the meeting now. There are 2 participants in the meeting.
Oh. All right, there we go. Now we share screen. Yes. Okay, so previously we opened PowerPoint and saved a blank PowerPoint I saved it as Whiting, homework number 10, 9/28/2020. All right. Now we're all up to speed. Now, when you open PowerPoint, the very first thing you do is you go to View, and we go to Slide Master, which you'll notice is the 6th button over in the ribbon under View. What that does is that gives me it gives me all the different kinds of slides that I can use in PowerPoint. All right, so I go to the very first one, and you'll notice it says click to edit master's title style, click to edit master text styles. All right, so I go up to the border where I get my little arrows, and I right click. Excuse me, I click on that. Now I'm going to go to Home, and I'm going to change to the type of font that I want. Okay, so the font I want is Times New Roman, and I particularly want you to change to that this time. All right, 44 is font size. That's a pretty good font size. All right, so I go to the lower section. I click on the border of that once more, and I am going to click on Times New Roman for that as well. Now, this is the easy way of dealing with PowerPoint presentations. where we go and we set it up before we start putting anything in, so that rather than have to go slide by slide and to edit it when the time comes, I can set everything up now. Now, I could leave it like this if I wanted. Right, I'm going to come down here to the next slide down, and you'll notice that it clicked on, or that it automatically went ahead and updated the font style to Times New Roman. Right, and if I go to the next one down, again, it went ahead and updated to Times New Roman. And that would be the same going down all of the different kinds of slides. Now, one thing that we want to do is we want to be very consistent throughout a PowerPoint presentation. Oh, man. You're freaking me out here, computer. Stop turning all yellow. It's not turning yellow up there, just on my, all right. So, I am going to go ahead and go back to view. And where is, oh, here we go. I have a slide master tab, since I have the slide master open. And I can just go ahead. Look, there are all kinds of things we can do here. We could put on background styles, although for the most part, I would say don't get carried away with that kind of thing. Sometimes people get so excited about doing different background styles or colors that you end up not being able to read their actual presentation, right? And our goal is always to be able to communicate. So if they can't read it, you're not communicating. All right, so we won't go with background styles. They have all these little themes that you could do. The same problem applies. If you go to work for a company, they may have a master slide idea and that has the company name or whatever. But again, you know, if we do something like this, oh my God, we're into a whole different ball of wax. Oh, you bastards. You went and changed everything on me while I wasn't. All right, so I got to go back and of course that is the danger, is that when you start fooling around with some of this stuff, it may change things. Okay, so again, I want everything to be Times New Roman. If you just change the first slide on the master slides, it'll make it consistent all the way through all the different styles of slides. All right, go back to the slide master, and I'm just going to close master view. All right, so I've got my first slide here, the title slide. Right? So for that, I'm gonna put my title as PowerPoint Basics. And down here, I'm gonna put homework number 10, 9, 28, 2020. Okay, and I'm not totally on fire about the size there of my subtitle, but good enough. All right, so then I click under. You'll notice on my left, I've got kind of a running total of slides. So I click under that, and it gives me a little line under that slide. And then I'm going to go with new slide.
Can't see
And-
anything.
Huh?
Can hardly see anything. What line are you talking about?
Here under the, here under
Oh,
the
under
titles.
slide? The next slide?
Well, yeah, because I'm going to add a new slide, right? So if I just click up here on new slide, it gives me the generic slide, which is kind of what I was gonna go for anyway. All right, so here I'm gonna put guidelines for PowerPoint presentations. All right, so I click here. Now, right now, I have it set up so that I have everything bullet pointed, right? You can bullet point, you can number, you can do without bullet points or numbers, whatever seems like it's the most comfortable. All right, so the first guideline all slides have text starting in the same location. All right, it's distracting when the text is hopping around in different locations. And that follows our next, which is all text is the same size. Okay, so having the text hop around as far as where it's starting, or having it change sizes with every slide, those are both distracting. The classic is advice is all slides have no more than 7 lines. Although usually it's not spelled with an R. Okay, there you go. Okay, that could explain why it's so small, all right, so, look, we've all seen these slideshow presentations where somebody's trying to cram 500 words onto one slide. We don't want that. If you've got that much to say, let's spread it out over a bunch of slides. One of my mentors, Dr. Congleton, used to say, when you make a slideshow for me, make it so that every 30 seconds I'm going to a new slide. Right, but I've known people to talk on the same slide for half an hour, 40 minutes. You know, your audience is going to sleep. You want things to be happening because audiences aren't as patient as they were back in the day. All right. So our next point is or excuse me, not all slides, but all lines have no more than 7 words. Although you notice that even that line has 8 words. This is more a guideline to tell you, again, we want to keep things simple. We want to keep things concise. We're trying to express a thought, not a sentence. Right? I had a junior engineer that worked for me that he could not let go of the idea that everything he ever wrote, ever, had to be a complete sentence. So like the title for sections of his report would be like 2 lines long with about 20 or 25 words. And I'm like, John, come on, man, shorten this baby up. And his slideshows were always a bit of a mess because of that, right? In fact, I can see I need to shorten this up even now and say just express a thought, not a sentence. Bullet points make it easy to read. And I mean that for the audience. The best thing we can do with a PowerPoint presentation is to have pictures that illustrate what we're talking about and talk about the picture. Do not read the PowerPoint slide. There is very little that is more boring than watching someone read a PowerPoint slide to you. Right? Because usually if it's well set up, kind of on this line, what is going to happen is you've already read the slide by the time they get through the first line. And then you have to wait for them to catch up. Right? But if I have a picture here, and I'm talking to what's happening in the picture, or a video, then that makes it a lot more interesting. For the audience, right? Because they can both read the slide and take in what you are saying at the same time, if they're paying attention. If they're not paying attention, well, that's a problem already. And remember the KISS principle.
Stewie pot.
There, stew pot. Yes, well, when I learned it, we used a different word than stew pot, but now now people get very upset if you use that word. Really, to an extent, even more so than if you use actual blasphemy or scatological terms. All right. So, these 7 basic points will carry you a long way in creating a PowerPoint presentation, right? And one of the reasons that we have this class in the engineering and technology is that we want people to express themselves well writing reports, using Excel, and using PowerPoint. All right, so that's my first slide. And now one thing that many writers have said through the ages is writing is all about rewriting, right? So if I want to get my first line here down to 7 words or below, what do I do?
text on the same location? Just rewrite it, reword it.
Right, reword it. What would be a good rewording?
Just put start text on the same location.
Text in the same location?
Oh wait, all slides.
I've actually got no problem with. Right, that gets me down to 5 words. Now look, 7 is just a rough guideline. Right, we might be in a situation where we've got some super long words that have to go in a line, or something of that nature. But it should not be too difficult to think of a way to express using fewer words, right? Because the human mind is a marvelous instrument for filling in gaps. Right? You can draw a few lines on the whiteboard, and people will say, "Oh yes, I see what you're doing. You're drawing an elk or a moose or whatever." Right? So, for example, my third line here, I could put no more than 7 lines. And for my fourth, I could put lines have no more than 7 words. Right? So, feel free to go back and revise. If you think you've gone too far and people aren't going to understand it, get one of your classmates or one of your family members, say, "Hey, could you look at this? Do you know what I mean here?" All right. Now, one thing I'm noticing here, I've got leftover space, and I'd really like my 7 lines to fill up my slide more. So I'm going to go back to View, Slide Master, edit my master slide here, and I am going to go to what it says is 24 plus. What that means is this biggest one is going to be 24. Oh, it says 36. Oh, wow, that's pretty big. Let's go down to 28, one of my favorites. There we go. And what about that one? Oh, okay, so these I need to come down 2 more. All right. So I'm going to save that and close Master View. And it looks like, all right, well, it did go to 28, so, but I can see I still have some more space. I might want to go to 32 or 36, but I'm not gonna worry about it right now. All right, so I'm going to, again, click over on my slide side and get that line that says it's ready for a new slide. And I'm going to do, I click on the bottom part and I'm gonna do a comparison. Right, so here I'm gonna say advantages, and then over here I'm gonna say disadvantages. And, oh, yes. All right, so my title for the entire slide will be advantages versus disadvantages. All right, what are advantages of using PowerPoint? Well, one thing is it's fast to put a presentation together. Disadvantage on that side is the chance of misinterpretation. Another advantage, pictures and videos can be inserted in your presentation. Another advantage, we can pace the presentation to your style. Okay, see, so now I've gone on to the second line, and I'm not 100% happy with that. So you know what? I'm gonna say, I'm gonna take out the presentation and just say paste to your style. Or maybe I could put in presentation. Oh, yes, that works out much better. All right, so what do you see as disadvantages to PowerPoint? Well, I'm going to say it's harder to express complexity. Right? A lot of times if we want to talk about something super complex, PowerPoint can be kind of a blunt instrument to do that. For example, later on today, I have to teach computer-aided manufacturing. And that's an interesting course. It is just packed full of technical detail, though. And I use the presentations that are provided by the publisher, but comparing those presentations to the actual chapters in the book, I notice a lot of detail gets left out. All right, so what might be another disadvantage of PowerPoint? This is something I've really noticed with a lot of people and PowerPoint. They know the material so well, they go way too fast through the PowerPoint. Even to the point where afterwards people are kind of like, what was that even about? We have to be aware, even though people can grasp things very quickly, the faster you're going through your PowerPoint, the less likely it is that they're able to absorb any kind of subtlety that you have in there. So we have to be aware. For example, in my classes, I try and talk a little about each point on the PowerPoint, on each PowerPoint slide, to give people an anchor against what is the material, right? So I'll try and give them a little more information than we have on the slide. And another thing I try and do is give people stories. When you have stories, you have a way of relating material better than just, you know, here's the material, absorb this. So for example, in engineering and technology, one thing that we always have is metrics. Ways of measuring whether we're doing a good job or a bad job. But when we choose these metrics, we always have to be super careful that they are actually going to illustrate whether it's a good job being done or a bad job being done. And the story I like to illustrate that with is Ford had a plant in Pennsylvania. And that plant was right on the Delaware River, which is actually an important point further down the story. At that time, Ford only used the metric of overall equipment effectiveness to decide whether a factory was doing a good job or a bad job. Now, what overall equipment effectiveness essentially just means how much of the time is the machinery running. Okay, so if the plant machinery is running more, you're judged as doing a better job if that OEE, or overall equipment effectiveness, is higher, rather than if it's lower because you're not running the equipment as much. All right, so that's the only measurement that's being used. The people running the plant realized this, and they said, you know what? We can just run the equipment all the time. We'll be making things whether we need them or not. So they started making more and more parts, so the equipment is running more and more, but then they had a problem. They started to build up so many parts, there was no place to put them. So they started taking them out the back door and dumping them in the Delaware River. So this one metric that they were using was actually biting Ford in the butt, because it was costing them more in materials, more in electricity, more in manpower for these guys to keep their overall equipment effectiveness as high as possible, but they were rewarding these guys essentially for being wasteful. Okay, so, boy, I hope I made a good point with that and wasn't just wasting everyone's time. Okay. All right. Another disadvantage is too much on one slide. Lose the audience. All right. First of all, I spelled slide wrong. That's easy to fix. But my point is too long. So I need to tighten that up a bit. All right. First of all, I'll lose one. And then I think I'll lose the. Right, that gets everything on one line.
Oh, I thought you were putting two sentences in there. Because technically you could lose the audience as well, depending on how your slides are.
Well, you bring up a point, because really, lose the audience is a clause in the sentence. Right, so I could I could put a comma there, or I could do like a slash. Right, so, right, so we could keep going on advantages and disadvantages, but I'm actually gonna move on and put in a new slide. Oh, but I went to the wrong kind of slide. I want actually, I want, all right. Now you're just annoying. All right, there we go. I'm going to talk a little bit about how do we present. Well, first of all, face front. And speak out. Okay, I think we've all probably seen those things where somebody gets up and they're just, you can't hear them, you don't know what they're talking about. Right? It's kind of like something that my mother used to say: if you can't sing good, sing loud. All right. Rehearse your presentation. This is kind of like super important, especially if you want to make a good impression. And why not? So, some sub-bullets under that. Don't read the presentation. You should know the presentation well enough that you can speak generally about it. It's very, as I've emphasized before, it's very good to have pictures or videos that are illustrating your points, and you can talk to them rather than just repeat what the people have already read off your slide. Right, so speak to those pictures or videos about what is going on in those. Right, so for example, when I worked with Texas A&M University, we did a lot of method improvement presentations. And what we would do is we would be studying jobs that people were doing, we would be filming those, and then we'd take film clips of problems and we would put them in our presentations, right? So by the film clip, there would be something that would say, if we use such and such a tool, we expect a 10% productivity increase, and that would save such and such amount of money per time that this is done. Right? But we wouldn't read that off. What we would do is we'd talk about what's going on in the film clip. And, you know, so I'd be up there saying, and you can see in this one, the guy's in a very awkward posture. We need to raise his work surface so that he's in a more natural posture, et cetera, et cetera. Right? So, all right. When you rehearse, rehearse out loud. Don't just read through the presentation. And for that matter, stand up. Speak out. These are things that help you so that it's not unnatural, right? I'm sure I've mentioned before that I grew up in a theater family. When we, oh, okay. Brandon says I haven't mentioned that before. I grew up in a theater family. There, I mentioned it already. When you're getting ready to do a show, what you do is you get the actors used to acting in the unnatural way that you have to do on stage, right? Movies are all about acting naturally, the way you would act in that situation. But on stage, you have to act unnaturally to look natural. Right? For example, on stage, you're much louder because you're projecting. Right? And you get the actors up and get them doing that every day. So when it's time for the show, right, you can't just say, look, everybody sit there, read through your lines every night, and then on the night of the show, you'll get up and do it. No, because they won't be able to. You get them to do what they have to do every night when you're rehearsing, or every day. If you're in professional theater, it's more likely to be every day you're rehearsing. So you act like you're doing the real show for real people every night. And then when it's time to do it, it's very natural. So when you're going to do your presentation, you want the same kind of a situation. You want to rehearse standing up, speaking out, practicing how you're going to do it, because otherwise you're going to get up and it's like, oh my God, this is all so new, so different. All right, so you'll notice that I went ahead and did some indentation here. That's pretty easy. If you hit the tab button, it will move over. But if I want to go backwards, I come up here to the decrease list level. All right. All right, you want to stand audience left.
So, how do I access that decreased list?
Right up here in the paragraph section, there are two arrows with text.
Okay.
See, for example, I could come here and I could hit the right arrow and it would move the text over to the right, but I don't want that. In this case, I want this to be a major point,
Okay.
so I hit the move arrow left. All right, so stand audience left, right? So in other words, if I were standing up, I would be standing over here because here in America, the major language is English, and we read left to right, right? So the people's eyes will come back to you after each new slide, right? It's not that it's about you, right? Because the information you're presenting should be the important idea, but it's that it is about you have to hold the audience to an extent. You want to get them involved. You want them to be rooting for you. And let me tell you, it is a tough one when you get up there and the audience is indifferent or even hateful to you. That's a tough one.
So what if you're left-handed? You just go stand audience right?
No, always stand audience left.
Okay.
I mean, actually, if you're left-handed, it helps in that regard because you'll be here going, "Brr, brr, 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 brr."
True.
Okay, so we want to make it a habit to stand audience left. Sometimes that's not a realistic possibility, like you would fall off the platform or whatever. But if at all possible, we want to do that, right? So speaking of the audience, think of yourself as a stove that's warming up the audience. this is, I don't know, more of an acting thing. But you want to create that connection with the audience, right? You want to make eye contact. Now, you'll notice I am right here where if I put in another line, my whole, all of my writing is going to shrink down. And I don't want to do that. Right? So one of the things that I might want to do is I might say to myself, you know what I really want to do is I want to split this into two sides. Slides, not sides. Right? So I would come here on this slide, right click, and copy, and then left click below that slide and right click. All right. Then I say, all right, now I've got that as two slides. What do I want to do? All right, well, on my first one, I'm going to go ahead and take out the part about rehearsal. Right, and that gives me room to think about some other things. For example, I might want to say, anticipate questions. I'm sure you've seen, I certainly have, people that get up and they're doing a presentation and it's obvious they don't know what the hell they're talking about. Right? No, you need to know your presentation well enough that you can answer at least the most reasonable questions. When I went to graduate school to get my master's degree, one of the things that we would be required to do is an end of semester project, and everyone would have to get up and present, right? And my fellow students were really annoyed by the fact that I would always ask a question when they presented. But the thing is, I would always ask them a softball question, something that's already in their presentation, and all they had to be able to do was remember that part of the presentation and say, oh, well, it works like this, and you know, this relates to this, and I could not believe how many of those guys would be like totally frozen with fear when I would ask them a question they should already know the answer to. The only time I didn't ask a question was when this one guy gave a presentation. Not only was it obvious he had no idea what he was talking about, but neither did the rest of us. And so one of my classmates writes a note, "What are you gonna ask him?" And I'm like, I don't know what the hell to ask him. I have no idea what he's talking about. But look, when you go to a presentation, particularly like a company presentation or a presentation at school, write down questions and ask them. Right? If your classmates have taken the time to actually learn something rather than mindlessly copy some stuff down, it'll make both of you look good. If they have only mindlessly copied something down, it'll make you look good anyway. Look, your professors really appreciate it when you ask questions. Why? Because we're sitting up here, we're talking for a long time, we'd like the chance to rest our voices for a minute. But when you get out in the workaday world, man, it's going to be even more important to ask questions and make sure you understand. Well, that was exciting. Okay, I guess the computer is trying to say class is over. What on earth happened?
Looks like you did a power reboot.
Well, I didn't touch the computer tower, so I don't. Well, anyway, it's 9:15. Are there any questions before before our happy band goes its separate ways? Well, in that case, I'm going to say, y'all have a good day. I will see you again on Wednesday morning.
Mr. Whiting,
Yes, ma'am.
do we send these files to you or not?
Yes, please send them, email them to me as per usual. We'll take it from there. Okay, I'm hoping I can talk Dana Desiderio into coming in and talking about the Dene philosophy of education soon. We'll see how that goes. All right, Winter, have fun, talk to you soon. That was nice thing.